Academica Media. You are listening to Charter School Superstars, bringing you the voices of an education revolution.
Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Ryan Kairalla from Doral College. We're talking school safety this week, and our guest is the Enterprise Sales Director at Vector Solutions, makers of the Vector LiveSafe school safety platform. Through his work with Vector LiveSafe, our guest has worked with institutions ranging in size from small private schools to some of the largest districts in the country, helping organizations prevent incidents on their campuses through crowdsourced risk intelligence to keep students and staff safe. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting www.vectorsolutions.com. We are happy to welcome Jim Lee on Charter School Superstars. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks for having me today.
So happy to have you. Obviously, we are a Florida-based organization, so school safety, being a stone's throw from Parkland, it's on the top of the mind for us. And so we are really happy that an organization like yours invests so much in school safety and helps keep schools safe. Let me ask you personally, what got you interested in the student safety industry? What inspired you to get into this line of work?
Sure. So I've been in software sales for some time, and I found the company LiveSafe. And what I really liked about it is that their solution was all about preventing incidents from happening in higher ed, K through 12, and the corporate space. And I just really liked the idea of being able to work with organizations that were really focused on preventing incidents among their students, staff, and faculty. So I found a passion in that, and there's nothing better than when you hear back from a organization that you work with saying, hey, we got some information and it helped prevent something from occurring. So that's how I got into space from software, but really happy to be where I am.
Following the Parkland shooting, schools took an even more aggressive interest in school safety. And as you identified, preventing incidents before they happen, identifying those incidents. And schools are just generally more aware than they've ever been about the many different safety issues that they can encounter. Can you talk a little bit about some of the common safety issues that you see recurring a lot in schools today?
Sure. So with the organizations that I work with, the ones that we hear quite a bit are the ones that everyone is kind of dealing with on a regular basis. It's bullying, it is mental health, it's drugs and alcohol, and kind of everything that comes with that. With mental health and bullying, you can get into self-harm and suicide, and individuals acting out from bullying. Drugs and alcohol can manifest in a lot of ways in terms of students hurting themselves or hurting others. So yeah, those are kind of the three areas that we hear a lot from schools about. We would like to know more about what's happening at our schools, and we'd like to get in front of it. We'd like to prevent it.
And your platform, specifically LiveSafe, takes sort of a novel approach to addressing some of these incidents, whether it's self-harm or violence or bullying on campus. Can you give some examples about how LiveSafe works and how students, staff, and administrators are using it to address some of these issues?
Sure. So we've got a lot of functionalities built into our platform, but really our bread and butter is the anonymous reporting functionality of LiveSafe. And I think what makes it unique is, one of the ways that makes it unique is that anonymous reporting systems by their nature are passive. So you put a system out there and you're hoping to get information back in. What LiveSafe has done is we've tried to build it to be as proactive as we can. So what it allows school administrators to do is add tip categories at a moment's notice. So if something happens at the school or if they see a trend, they can immediately add a tip category to the application to get information about that specific concern or event. What we also can do is we have the ability to send out broadcast messaging where you can receive information back in. So what we found through our focus groups, through research, is that in a lot of cases, people do have information, but they don't necessarily understand that this information is worth sharing. So we've got, through our broadcast capability, the ability to send out what we call a broadcast request for information. And then immediately from that broadcast that goes out, a student, faculty, or staff member, parent would be able to click on that broadcast and immediately report something that they've seen. So I think that makes it very unique. Another thing that makes just kind of holistically how Vector Solutions works is that Vector Solutions also has a lot of training that's for students around suicide, about drug abuse and things like that, which allows you to have kind of another layer of information about for students about what to do, how to make good choices, and just to know more about those subjects around bullying, drugs and alcohol, suicide, and mental health. So I think it's just a very holistic approach, and we're trying to be as proactive as possible.
So it sounds like what you're saying is key in any school's safety strategy, there really has to be two-way communication. You can't just put out the equivalent of a suggestion box where you just tell people, hey, if you see something, use this, reach out to us, use some platform, make it anonymous. That's not going to get a school what they need in terms of information. What you're saying is it has to be a two-way approach. Schools need to broadcast. They need to see the trends that are happening and reach out to stakeholders to request that information and make it a real two-way communication.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if that's how it should be built, and how we've seen more success is kind of having that two-way communication approach. What we've also seen is that you have to really look into how you build out the functionality that is student facing to make it more likely that they're going to submit information. Sometimes the biggest gap, but there's such a big gap between seeing something and saying something. And what we've seen through focus groups and through our research is that the way you build a system for anonymous reporting can make the biggest difference between someone seeing something and actually reporting it. And what we've seen is that if you have, for instance, a system that you have to fill out a questionnaire, or if you have a system in place where a student has to call a number to report something, students aren't calling their own parents. So asking them to call a number and talk to someone they're not unfamiliar with is unlikely. And every time you have something like a form that has to be filled out in order to report something, each question, even if it's not required, is another opportunity for that student to say, you know what, never mind, I'm not going to report it. So we've really built a system that's very pared down, because what we really want is that first bit of information to be automatically sent. And then we've got that two-way communication where whoever sent it, even if they remain anonymous, we'll be able to go back and forth with that administrator, so that administrator can get all the information they need to create an action from that information that's been shared.
So I'm seeing two considerations now that are important for this kind of communication to work. And these sound like two considerations that have been fully integrated into your platform. The first is that two-way communication piece that we discussed. And the second consideration being removing as much friction as possible between the seeing something and the saying something, making sure that students are identifying that when they, to remove as many barriers as possible, basically, and to make that experience as easy as possible, so that at some point in the communication, the student or whoever's reporting it doesn't just go, oh, this is too much trouble, maybe I shouldn't worry about it, because we want those communications to happen. And as you bring up all of this, Jim, I can't help but think of Alyssa's Law, which was recently passed in Florida about a year ago in response to the Parkland shooting. And that law puts a lot of obligations on schools to have a lot of communication infrastructure in place, because I know that a lot of people have noted that part of what happened in Parkland was a communication failure. People weren't able to report information as it was happening regarding this incident, and Alyssa's Law is meant to address that. And I would imagine that LiveSafe has Alyssa's Law in mind, and has integrated some amount of compliance with that law into its platform. Am I right?
Yes. I've been talking a lot about the tip reporting capabilities of the platform, but we also have a panic alarm where with 2 clicks, it will automatically send out a alarm that will show that the individual's name that kind of initiated the alarm. It's done from the mobile application, and it shows their location and continuously shares their location. And what it also does is that it shows it opens up a line of communication. So if someone is able to communicate after they initiated that alarm, they can do so. If not, it automatically just shows an alarm has been initiated at this location by this individual. So it gives a little bit more information than just hitting an alarm and not knowing, exactly where the alarm came from on a particular campus or who sent it in. This gives a little bit more information, which in a situation where a panic alarm is going to be initiated, as much information as possible, as quickly as possible, is very important. So yes, we absolutely have been working to make sure that we are working towards all the states that are enacting Alyssa laws.
That's great. That's really, really important. I know from seeing school administrators revamp their school safety measures in the last couple years that community outreach is so important. Bringing in your stakeholders is so important. Talking to parents, talking to kids, and creating a culture where we feel like information can be shared. Mm-hmm. Can you reflect a bit on that? I mean, I'm sure you're seeing a lot of examples of that on the ground, of administrators in schools rising to the occasion and making school safety a true community effort.
Yeah, and it's unbelievably important, and it needs to be done. Just to talk a little bit about it, the U.S. Secret Service just came out with a report about averting targeted school violence. And two of the key findings, which kind of go directly to what you're talking about, is one, that targeted school violence is preventable when communities identify warning signs and intervene. And also, students are best positioned to identify and report concerning behaviors displayed by classmates. So kind of two of those findings that came from that report that was published this year really talk to, getting into the community, and one, giving them a system where they can report it and making that system as easy as possible. And two, making sure that you're getting the word out there and making sure that there's some sort of training information that you're getting not only to your faculty and staff, but also to parents and students to make sure they're aware of what to look for and what to report.
That's so, so critical. And in my line of work, I am so endlessly impressed by the way that the administrators I come in contact with are able to do this and how they were able to rise to the occasion, whether it's principals, teachers, students, parents. Everybody has stepped up to address these issues. And we're certainly grateful for the work of companies like yours to provide these really dedicated professionals with the tools they need to keep students safe. You can find out more about our guest's work by visiting www.vectorsolutions.com. Jim, before we let you go, one last question this week. If with the snap of your fingers, you could make any change to the education system, what change would it be?
Sure. And I might sound like a broken record here because I've been talking about it quite a bit, is that to make sure that your school, your district has the ability for students to report concerns, and also the training to know what to look for in terms of what those concerns are going to look like. So kind of having that yin and yang in terms of a system report and also the training to know what to look for.
So, so critical. Jim, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it.
And thank you all for checking out Charter School Superstars.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.